Money is amazing. I love it. You love it. We all love it. By the way, guess what? In this 21st century, if you do not have money, you're going to get yourself into lots of problem. But you can as well get yourself into lots of problem as well if you do have the money and you do not have the wisdom. Now makes me introduce today's topic. It's about the dangers of having money without wisdom. Guess what? A lot of you guys try the best as you can. You try as much. By the way, remember this and never forget it as much as you live. It takes time and effort to make money, but brains to keep it. Never forget that. All right. Now, these are the things I'm going to share with you that are actually the dangers that are associated with you or anybody out there who has the money, but you do not have the wisdom. All right. And by the way, you can actually solve this issue by doing some things that are out there. All right. Let's get into the business. But don't forget this. Some of you guys are watching my videos without liking. All right. Just like this video. It doesn't cost you nothing. Just hit that like button and also subscribe down below so that you'll be notified whenever I upload a new good video. Let's get into the business now. The point number one is you always lose it. You're gonna lose that money, whether you want it or not. If you do not have the wisdom and you have money, guess what happens? You will always lose that money no matter what, even if it's your age or what time. You're going to lose that money. Guess what? I've told you it takes time and effort to make money, but it takes wisdom and brains to keep it. That's what you need. All right? By the way, and that's why you always hear this. The net worth of an individual is never measured of how much you make. It is measured on how much you can be able to retain to yourself, the absorbability, the capacity to absorb and retain that money and be able to grow it as well. All right. But if you just have the skills of how to make it, how to keep it and to expand and grow it and retain it, you do not have it, guess what happens? It's gonna be slipping off your hands and you're gonna be seeing going out there. Have you ever met somebody complaining and saying, hey, guess what? Last week I had a lot of money, but I have nothing right now. I do not know what happens. They even think in Africa, people tend even to think like you've been witched, you know, in voodoo or have those kind of things and funny things. Let me tell you one secret. If you do not have the wisdom, there is no way you can tell me you're having a salary of 20,000 Kenyan shillings at the end of the month and you're living in a 9,000 or 10,000. I mean, seriously, how can you pay half of your salary towards a residential place where you actually live? You've already violated what we call the 30%, you know, minimum, or should I say maximum 30% of how much you make towards your rent. So some things are actually needed a review to think, not actually developing some emotion and saying, oh, you've been bewitched. I don't know, it's your aunt, it's your uncle, it's your neighbor, and all those kind of things. No, you need to be wise, and you're gonna lose that money. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. That is the very first thing that you're supposed to understand. You're gonna lose it no matter the time, but the fact remains that money gonna slip away from you. That is one dangers of the money, and I've seen it going. I've ever seen some people who inherit something maybe from their parents, or some people who are just actually lucky in their lives. They got some money, they squander. By the way, if you come from Kenya, you can actually relate to a certain story. There was a certain section in the central Kenya where people actually sold their lands, not really sold, but the government wanted to construct a dam, a big dam, and what have you. It's actually in existence, and then the guys were compensated because they were to, you know, sort of relocated or something of sort. And some guys were crying on the social media. I got my several couple of millions, I don't know, 2 or 3. Today I do not have anything. I'm actually working, can't even afford food and all those kind of things. And they were crying. They were saying, if I can be given another chance, I would do exactly that. I've ever seen somebody who is selling a piece of land and they reside in a hotel or an Airbnb. Can you imagine that? You sell a piece of land, and maybe that is an inherited land, and then you actually go there and live in an Airbnb. You drink 24/7. I don't know, in Kenya they call it a luta and continuata or something else. It's very dangerous, you know. Be wise, eh? The other thing is actually you lack what we call the respect to humanity. You know, I've ever met some people who has money and then they tend to assume like everyone else, they are not smart. The reason why they do not have it is because they are dumb. You know, they are stupid. That's why they do not have it. Have you ever met such kind of an individual? Or by the way, personally, I've ever met somebody, quite of a rich individual, and I was trying to sort of borrow an idea or something. And guess what? He did shut everything I was thinking about, and he told me that can't work. You know, I've ever met these kind of guys who they just squeeze everything they know. That is the only thing can work. You know, they tell you, just forget about anything that you're doing. Do this. That's what's gonna work. Because I know, see, just because it worked for you does not necessarily mean it's gonna work for everybody. And I always love to give this example. If maybe I sold a book and become wealthy, it does not mean that everyone out there should shun whatever they are doing and do the books and say, see, it's not really the truth. And can you also meet somebody and tell you the reason why you do not have money is because you do not think, your mother doesn't think, your brother does, your father does. They just show you how, and they're so cold on you and such kind of a thing. And of course, when you have this money and then you tend to lose, there's something called social fabric. In life, money is okay, and also the social life is okay. As far as the spiritual life as well, if you believe in spirituality. So the point is this: you find like you lose that touch. When you have that money, you do not have the wisdom to understand. By the way, sometimes I always tell people, whenever you have money, it's also good to make sure that at least you respect the people surrounds you. You may not be perfect about this. No one is perfect out there, but you can try as much as you can. Make sure that at least you can be able to, even if you know you can't help somebody, just don't be rude. Just let them be. Just let them be. Even if you know you can't help them, something of sort. So most of the people, when you have the money and you actually lose this respect to people or humanity, is one of the dangers of not having the wisdom in your life as far as the money is concerned. And I always tell people, whenever you kneel out there to pray God to give you money, always ask, and God, once you give me that money, please, if you don't mind, accompany that with wisdom, because it's a necessity. You really need it. Okay? We got the point number 3 is that you can even do what we call the bodily harm. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people doing the bodily harm. For example, say like you go out there, you get the money, you actually driving carelessly. You're out there, you are like hanging around in some areas, you're trying some things that are quite weird, or maybe say you're intoxicating yourself, like drinking throughout the time. Why? You have the money, you can be able to do it. You're actually there doing aimlessly, and you're having fun with different ladies. You don't even care about your life and health and those kind of things. And by the time you realize, you show up at the end of the side and you have actually acquired some diseases. You actually intoxicated yourself. You're not even in the right proportion, in right order, and all those kind of things. So if you do not have the wisdom, and I always tell people, wealth, or rather health, is always equivalent to wealth. It's always good to make sure that as much as you're working for the sake of your pockets, to look fat in your pocket, figuratively, so to speak, also it's good to make sure that you take care of your health. So when you have a combination of those two things at the same time, guess what are you going to have been having? An amazing moment. But when you do not understand one thing, hey, I'm supposed to take care of myself. And I've seen these kind of things. I'm not gonna name names here, but if you can go in the social media and search, you can be able to see this kind of people. There are people who got exposed to money, they got some money, they tend to do a lot of things, and then they reach to a point whereby they say life is no longer fun. And you wonder, why are you saying life is no longer fun? Because it's sort of, you have exhausted all the good things that are actually there, so to speak, or maybe you think. But the reality is, it's a combination of being healthy, having good social fabric, and also understanding some nitty-gritties as far as your life is concerned. Okay, it's good to make sure that you have that wisdom. Let's go to the point number 4. You lack of provision of his continuity simply means that you do not have the capacity to understand on how you're supposed to invest this money. You're supposed to understand one thing: the financial freedom is really where you get that money, you invest it just in case whatever. For example, let's say maybe you've gotten a gig, and that gig where you've been getting the money, it is good also to take that money and invest it somewhere else, so that at least you can be able to continue with your life, and as far as the life of the finances are concerned. But if you do not have the capacity to understand how and when to invest and how to go about it, guess what happens? You're gonna exhaust, and then you tend to have what we call, you have a high consumption rate compared to how much you make. For example, you can actually consume 50 Gs in a weekend, and you can only manage to raise maybe, let's say, 100 Gs in a month. Definitely it means that you have a high, or you have an elevated consumption ability compared to the rate at which you're making the money. Then you're going to have a little bit of time, a rough time in your life. So what you're supposed to understand is this: have the ability to go and invest that money, so that at least you can continue enjoying your life, and also the money is making something for you. We always call them the baby money. The baby money is flowing in, and now the baby money can actually sustain your lifestyle as you move forward. Okay, I've ever seen some people get access of 10 million. You have the 10 million in your pocket, and I don't know who told people, like, you think like that's a lot of money, and by the time you realize you are at 3 million, you are at 2 million, you are at a couple of hundreds, and when you're at a couple of hundreds, at the time now you're thinking about investing. All right, what you could have done with 10 mil is not what you can do in the hundred thousands. So it is good to be very careful and cautious and smart. And if it is possible to pay somebody, if you know you see, you can't lie to yourself. You really know yourself. All right. Somebody can call me and tell me, hey, Joseph, I know what, you know what? I know I'm not good at money. I do spend a lot. I was wondering if you can guide me and tell me what exactly I can be able to do. Definitely, I'll be able to guide you on that. But if you're just out there, you're ignorant, you don't want to be told, and maybe somebody tells you, hey, you know what? You can actually set aside a certain fraction of that money, get a financial advisor who you feel you're comfortable with to guide you, to direct you. There's some people who are not even okay with them, with the money. They don't even entrust themselves with the money. They have a company. The company is usually does what? Invest on their behalf, because they know if I get into the business. There's someone who approached me and told me, guess what, Joseph? I do have money, but I always fear to invest. I do not know exactly what I can be able to do, and that's why I usually have a company. I have lawyers who and people who actually understand how to invest in those kind of things. Am I making a right decision? So if that is working for you, so be it. Rather than you being there believing in yourself, you have the weaknesses, and then there you are. For example, I have a certain friend of mine who decided to open a school, but the guy has a problem with ladies. Every time, whenever he sees a lady, he has to be with them and all those kind of things. And then he employed the teachers, and every time, you can just imagine, every weekend, a boss is having fun with. Right now, as we speak, to cut the story short, right now, as we speak, there is no school. And I told the guy, you have a weakness in this. And this is because you do not have the wisdom as far as the finances are concerned. You're supposed to draw a boundary because between you and your employees and such kind of people. Otherwise, if you continue with this character, you're going to harm yourself. Let's go to the next point. The last one is actually you largely affect your social life. This one I've actually covered it in largely. You affect your social life. You can even rub shoulders with your family members, with your neighbors, even sometimes with your country and such kind of thing. Because even if you when you even lack wisdom, you actually avoid taxes. And when you avoid taxes, you rub shoulders with the government. When you rub shoulders with the government, definitely your business is gone. All right. So it is good to make sure that you adhere to rules and regulations. Sometimes you may find people who are bullying each other. You can bully people just because you have it. And the moment you realize you're saying, hey, I can even do this and be able to pay you, the moment you realize you're squandering that money, and when time comes, let me tell you one thing, pride comes before a fall. It is good to be very careful. Invest that money, and all the time, ask for the wisdom. Otherwise, you can get yourself into lots of problems. Anyway, for now, it's a goodbye. But don't forget this. There is another point that I ought to include it here. At times, if you believe in spirituality, it can actually even affect your spiritual life. Sometimes it can reach to a point whereby you say, I don't even think God exists and all those kind of things. I can do it by myself. Be very cautious and careful. I have seen a lot of people who actually contemplate life on that basis, especially when they lack that thing. By the way, guess what? That marks the end of my video, but don't forget this. You can pick that number of mine from the description of this specific video. Let's talk business. And for now, it's a goodbye. See you in the next one.